Hi, this is Robert Clinky-Beard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. We're going to take 20 minutes to deliver some amazing content from accomplished leaders and business owners to provide you with some value to scale your business and to become a better leader and push yourself out of your comfort zone. We encourage you to like and share with everyone to spread our messages. I'm super excited to announce our new partnership with Weathermatic. For most landscape companies, irrigation is an untapped gold mine for growth and profit, but labor and process problems stand in the way. So Weathermatic has created a partnership to package mobile technology and software with proven business solutions to tackle the perennial irrigation challenges and take your operations to a whole new level. I encourage you to reach out to Weathermatic and learn more. Cheers, everyone. Hi, this is Robert Clinky-Beard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I'm really excited today to be joined by Weston Zimmerman. Weston, really nice to meet you.
Thank you. It's good to be here, and thanks for having me.
So, Weston, tell my audience a little bit about you, your background, what you're currently doing. Maybe just spend a couple minutes doing that, please.
Yeah, sure. So I am from central Pennsylvania. I live in the beautiful Appalachian Mountains. And I started working for a company called Tussie Landscaping when I was 16 years old. Before I even had a driver's license, I was biking to work every day. And I started working there as just a laborer, just a worker on the crew. We did full-on outdoor living spaces, full-on, design build, patios, swimming pools, water features, the whole nine yards. When I started there, the company was about a $700,000 a year company, maybe 7 to 10 employees. It was your dime a dozen company struggling to be profitable, trying to figure out how do you price your work profitably? How do you make sure that you actually have some money left after you work hard all year to do some beautiful work? And in that journey, the owners of the company and the leadership team of the company, and ultimately at the end, even myself, was involved in like, okay, how do we transition from basing our pricing based on what we think we're worth, an emotional thing, to an actual mathematical thing, which is what's it cost us to be in business? What's our direct cost in this job? That's our break even and a profit. And then there's our price. So we were reverse engineering this in spreadsheets, pen and paper. Charles Vanderkoy come up with the multiple overhead recovery system. We were students of his and had plenty of his seminars. And in the end, as we were doing this, we were like, this is not a problem unique to us. I started viewing this as this is an industry problem. And I wanted to turn this into a product that could be deployed to thousands of contractors all over the world and solve this problem at scale for this industry. Because the status quo that I see in this industry is a lot of really talented craftsmen, hardworking people would rather go to the dentist and get their wisdom teeth pulled out than sit down in front of a spreadsheet.
True.
And so for a software product to work, it's got to make it so easy that it's like, yeah, cool. And I can just rob and duplicate this methodology, this thinking of how do I price my jobs correctly for profit without having to become an accounting geek or a spreadsheet nerd or whatever. And kind of what happened, what bridged the gap there is my dad was in telecommunications. So while I was working in landscaping, I was around technology. And my dad sold his business to a company, and then he went to work for the company that bought him. And that company had a software development division. And I came home from work one day in the middle of this struggle at Tussie Landscaping, like, how do we fix this? This is ridiculous. It's taking forever. How do we make this easier? And I saw my dad he was clicking around on some grass on his laptop, sitting on the back patio after dinner one evening on the patio, working. And I was like, what are you doing? And I was really curious. And he came in and showed me how he was testing a software project. And I was like, so you mean you can just like work with some engineers to figure out like what it is you want the software to do and they'll just build it? And it's like, yep. And so that's where the light bulb went off in my head to be like, dude, that's what we need to do. The most naive light bulb I ever had because I had no idea what I was signing up for, but hey, I digress. Here we are.
Perfect. That's good story. So now you're right. I mean, a lot of landscape owners, in fact, many owners period, struggle with the financial piece. They struggle looking at numbers. Obviously there's a lot of them good out there. I would imagine even just years like going through COVID, not knowing numbers, but then obviously getting a good sense that labor's going up, materials is going up, trying to wrap their hands around it, being able to price jobs. I mean, that was probably pretty challenging for a lot of companies, especially ones that don't necessarily have a fancy set of software. Maybe they're just using the basic QuickBooks and that's about it. But
Yeah.
what were some of the things you saw, especially going through that time in terms of trying to wrap the hands around?
Yeah. Well, I'll try to answer it by this. Like, what is critical for establishing your pricing is understanding what it costs you to be in business. What's your equipment payment? What's your shop cost to you? What is fuel and utilities? What's it cost to keep the lights on, essentially? And a lot of companies get to the point where they sit down in the winter time, let's say, and they figure out what it costs them to be in business, and then they come up with an hourly rate or a daily rate based on that they have to generate in revenue plus materials to be profitable. And they go to town selling work based on that hourly or daily rate that they produced back in the winter when it was snowing and they had nothing better to do. The problem is with that methodology, that's good thinking, that's sound thinking, but the problem is April comes by and insurance bill goes up. July comes by and fuel got more expensive, or a truck broke down and now you replaced it, or you added a truck without really planning for it and now you're burning more fuel and you have another truck payment. And the point I'm making is an out of date budget is a wrong budget. Meaning if you build a budget and you come up with what it costs you to be in business and you establish your pricing based on that, things change so rapidly. To your point about COVID, things happen. And an out-of-date budget is a wrong budget, so that when my insurance goes up, I add a truck, I hire another employee, whatever it may be, buy another piece of equipment that because it was a good opportunity or whatever. Well, if I don't update my pricing, my cost of business changed, but my pricing is still based on January's math. I'm selling work at incorrect prices, and that is how. Or another example is I might bid a job for 5 days or 100 man hours, but then it takes me 150 man hours to complete it. And even if I had the math perfect on paper, if I take 150 man hours to complete a 100 man hour bid, I still lose money. And that is those two things, the math and the resources, the man hours or the materials it took to do the job. Those two things, the math and the resources, are the two things that wipe out profit for contractors. And that's exactly how you get to the end of the year after working and producing more beautiful jobs than you've ever done before, processed more revenue than you ever have before. You have 5-star reviews, you have happy clients, you should be on the top of the world. But when you open up your bank account, it's like, where in the world is all that money? And that is how. It's either one of those two problems. So either the math is wrong or outdated, or the resources in my bids are incorrect. Not enough of man hours, not enough of material, whatever it is. And that is what prevents contractors from thriving, those two things. And we're on a mission at SynkedUP to end entrepreneurial poverty in that way, meaning see more contractors thriving, not just surviving. And the way we want to see that being done, or the way we want to help that to be done, is make it easier to kill those two profit killers. Make it easier to have correct math. Make it easier to have accurate estimates, so that it's not like every contractor on the face of the earth has to kind of reinvent their own wheel, so to speak, and figure this out the hard way over 10, 15, 20 years. And finally, at the end of their career, like, okay, now I got it into the system. I want to see contractors be able to do that, have access to those sound methodologies in year one, so that you can have 20 years of building a business that you own instead of the business owning you.
Right. So why do contractors find it so challenging to price? Is it just not understanding all the moving parts? Do they just turn a blind eye? I mean, what's that biggest roadblock?
Well, I mean, most contractors in the small business space get into it because they love to do the work, not because they love to do business, not because they love to play office. They love to do the work. But unfortunately, playing office, so to speak, building a budget, all of that stuff, building systems and processes, is critical if you're going to succeed at business. Because it's not who works the hardest that wins. I know a guy in my local market here, salt of the earth kind of guy, hardworking dude, but he hates the office, and frankly, he's barely surviving, and he's in business for 20, 30 years. I don't want that to happen. And why that happens, I think, is because contractors love to do the work. They're craftsmen, they're artists, they love what they do, and they'd rather just work harder. The default response is to just work harder when things aren't going well, as opposed to, well, like, okay, what's wrong with my system? What's wrong with my math? Why do I bid jobs, win jobs, do beautiful work, get 5-star reviews, but then not make any money? And so what I want to make it easier to do is, instead of having to feel like, well, let me start at square one and figure out what 2 + 2 is for every contractor, it's like, no, here's the methodology. Just answer questions like, what's your equipment payment? What do you pay your employees? What's your insurance bill? Just answer basic questions. And then, SynkedUP as a software essentially says, answer these questions and we will tell you what your hourly rate needs to be. We will tell you what your break even is on every job, so you're not tempted to sabotage yourself and negotiate with Mrs. Smith to the point where you have no profit left on the job.
Right.
So kind of a rambling answer, but that's,
No, I mean, that's a fair answer, but I mean, I agree 100%. A lot of people struggle with the pricing piece. Don't know where to start with that. And yes, I agree that, trying to find what that price looks like, to make sure you're covering overheads and having a nice profit. How does the reality of, if they have got too much overhead or too much this and that they're currently priced out of the local market, where they're coming in at, say, $50 an hour,
yeah.
but competitive market conditions are 42 an hour.
Yeah. Well, there's two things. I don't I believe price is pretty low on the totem pole in terms of what wins jobs, what closes jobs. To me, what closes deals is your ability as a salesperson to build trust and credibility, and meaning the client is beginning to view you as the person that's going to make their visions and dreams come to life.
Right.
Right, like, and I can point to a million scenarios. There's one story real quick at Tussey Landscaping where we did a bid on the job, and the homeowner had gotten 3 bids. Bid one was $6,000. Bid two was $30,000. Bid three, Tussey Landscaping's bid, was $70,000. Who won the job? Tussey Landscaping did, at 70,000. Why? Because the homeowner was like, well, there's no way under the sun that this bid one is going to be able to produce what I want. They obviously didn't understand my goal. Bid two was like, closer, but my confidence that I'm going to really get what I want, I'm going to go with the second bid or the third bid, and know that I'm going to get what I want. I'm not going to have any regrets.
Right.
And so I share that to make a point that you cannot thrive by competing on price. There are markets and services that price is a bigger thing to closing deals, but in the project design build contracting space, not so much. It's more about your ability to build that trust that you will be able to and achieve what the client's vision is, and
Yep.
paint that vision for them. But in terms of pricing yourself out of your market, let's say you go through all the exercise of building a budget and you're charging, say, $75 an hour, and the budget says, oh, you got to charge 105. And it's like, there is no way I'm going to be able to charge that rate. Well, the truth could be that you just have too many toys, or you just have too much infrastructure for the amount of work that you're doing. And so you have two options. Either produce more without increasing any infrastructure costs or overhead costs, or cut some of those, trim some of the fat off of your infrastructure and overhead costs. The only way you can win, I mean, the math is the math. You can't argue with it. Either the budget dictates your floor. You cannot charge a nickel less than what your budget dictates, or you're going to go backwards. And so it's either fiddle with that budget to trim expenses somewhere, or figure out ways we could be more efficient and produce more work without increasing our infrastructure and overhead expense costs. And I'll just share, like, at Tussey Landscaping, after we went through the whole experience and journey of figuring out our own numbers, and let's say we went from breaking even to making a 10% net profit, we then turned our sights on how can we be more efficient? How can we produce more without increasing our expenses? This is a gut feeling statement, but I think we squeezed more profit juice out of the second pursuit, efficiency, than we did out of the numbers pursuit. Meaning there is a lot of fruit on the vine in finding ways to be more efficient.
Yeah, no, 100%. I did an exercise with a company several weeks ago, and by the time we looked at routing, idling, unauthorized stops, I mean, it was easily 750,000 a year.
Mm-hmm. And
It's substantial.
imagine if that just was cut in half. Can you imagine? Like,
Yeah.
That's tremendous.
Yeah, and that's not even affecting, when people get concerned about cutting back costs, they think about, reducing hours and jobs,
Right.
which then affects quality. So that wasn't even touching any of that part of things.
Right.
So yeah,
And in the landscaping space, a lot of times we like our toys, we like our equipment. We have an errand addiction. So a lot of times there are not, I shouldn't say a lot of times. There are times when we help because in SynkedUP we help contractors build their budget. And sometimes we do have conversations where we're like, dude, you're say $2 million and you have the equipment for a $5 million company. Like either you got to sell some of this stuff or get to 5 million so you can pay for
yeah,
this stuff. You know?
yeah. People like their toys.
Yeah.
What do you see the biggest bottleneck in growth?
You can't grow a business without cash. Cash is like oxygen. So you got to fix the pricing thing that we've just been talking about. But once that's done, that's a mathematical equation. And it's like it's a bit of a shot in the arm because you can sit down, look at the numbers, and fix that problem. But so it's a relatively easy problem to solve if you have, the right tools and the right knowledge. The harder problem to solve, and I say it's harder because it impacts human behavior, self-limiting beliefs, all of this stuff, is I'll say it this way: systems and processes are the keys out of the entrepreneurial prison. And so many times we as owner operators struggle with transitioning from I do everything to I build the system and process that other people then do to produce the work. Meaning, as the owner operator, you're working on the engine that produces the work instead of as the owner operator doing the work. And good systems and processes um, are, well, put it this way: the owner operator is often the bottleneck in their own business. The business cannot grow, or the owner operator feels stressed, overwhelmed, and overworked because they are truly the only person that can do that task in their business. They're the only one that can bid a job. They're the only one that can invoice correctly. They're the only one that can manage the logistics because they've never stopped for a few minutes to define, like, okay, well, what is the process with which I do this? Well, once I define the process, now I can have somebody else do that and I can refocus my time on something else. And so I think that is really one of the biggest things that is universally true across small business is owner operators not taking the time it takes to build systems and processes and only focusing on how to do the work versus who does it.
Yeah. And part of that is the discipline, because you could
Yeah.
develop a nice looking process, a really detailed process, but it's either not rolled out properly, it's not, you don't review it, it's not updated,
Right.
so it just sits on a nice shelf and looks pretty.
Yep.
And that's probably one of, yeah, once you've gone through the process of developing processes, then you need to make sure it's implemented efficiently.
Yeah, and two tips that really help turn it from shelf, collecting dust on a shelf, to actually being used and generating value is turn those processes into a checklist. Like, hey, you can't finish marking a job as sold until you've finished the job as sold checklist. Hey, you can't close out a job until you've finished the job closeout checklist. And in
Right.
each one of those processes, there's a definition of done. This was really helpful for us internally, was defining what defines this checklist as done. Like, sure, maybe you send out all the invoices, but do you know that they're right? Like it's like, coming up with a clear definition of done so the person you're handing the checklist off to understands the outcome, not just, yes, I've checked all 7 boxes.
Right. Makes sense. Weston, we're coming close to our time here. How do people reach out to you, find out a little bit more about your software? Then what's the best way to do that?
Well, you can go to synkedup.com. And if you're watching the video, you can see how it's spelled. It's spelled with a K, SYNKEDUP.com. Personally, I am the most active on Instagram. Like I basically live my life of running SynkedUP as a company through our Instagram account, stories and stuff. So you can DM me there. And we are holding an event later this year, October 3rd and 4th, 2024. We call it the Contractor Summit, and we bring in some motivational speakers. We're bringing in Greg Crabtree, the author of Simple Numbers. I don't know if you've heard of that book or not, but
Yeah.
he's the
Yep.
speaker.
Great guy.
Yep. And October 3rd and 4th, Dayton, Ohio. And we're also going to be touring a landscape business operation in the local Dayton market. Jeremy Swihart from J Squared Outdoor runs an incredible operation, a tremendous operation. So we're going to be touring that as part of the event. So if you want to learn more about who we are and get into our tribe a little bit, you're welcome to come to our event. And if you just Google SynkedUP Contractor Summit, that'll pop up.
Cool. Awesome. Weston, really appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming on and sharing your knowledge. And I hope everything goes well.
Absolutely. I hope that this inspires someone to make one little course correction in the right direction and make more money at the end of the year because of it. That's
Awesome.
my goal.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Thank you, Weston.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, cheers.
Yep. Cheers.
Hopefully that was pure, dead brilliant for you today, and you got some great takeaways for your business or your leadership role. This is Robert Clickybeard. We'd love to get you and your friends to join us in our future journey. So please subscribe to our various podcast channels or visit thecommerciallandscaper.com or wilson360.com. Love you to join you there. We have our new 360 Plus community program we'd love you to sign up for. It's on the far right-hand side of our website. Thanks again for our partner, Weathermatic, and I encourage you to reach out to them. Have a pure, dead, brilliant day. Cheers, everyone.